RPG Maker. Okay, now that the grounds are set, let's look at the list of the games that I have stated that I plan to play for a video. And now here is the order that was given to me by a random wheel. So here's the first video on Idrica Descending, which, funnily enough, is made by the same person as Creature Hunter. Small world. Same as Creature Hunter, I picked the game back up straight from where I left off, and continued on for the Ice Orb, eventually putting the game down again to write the script after the story beats after obtaining the Wind Orb. So let's get a moving on with... The Ice Temple is the temple I have the least to talk about, positive or negative. It introduces the player to needing certain skills outside of battle. In this instance, it's the mage's fire spell. A thick snowstorm covers your approach to the Ice Temple, which can be skipped completely if you have the fire spell before you need to go through it. But you'll need the spell to enter the temple itself, so either way, you need to get the fire spell. Once you're inside, it's a slippy ice puzzle again. Wonder where I've seen that before. Where you need to push rocks onto the ice from above to unlock new paths for more loot. The fight itself with the Ice Guardian is nothing special, but it unlocks 3 new classes, the Lancer, Archer, and Monk, and the 4th party member, a Nandroid, whose name is deceptively close to Nandroid. After the Ice Guardian, we get access to the desert, and all the wonders that place has. Now, don't make the same mistake I made. Buy the June Talisman from the store. It'll make the next 30 minutes marginally more bearable. You're tasked with navigating to the Fire Temple through swaths of quicksand. One wrong step and you're gonzo back to the start. Then, once you're in the temple, it turns into pushing boulders to shut off fire jets, which I found to be an incredibly fun use of my limited smarts. You tricky bastard! Oh, that's smart! And then a small maze when you're upstairs, including a fight with a mimic, and then it's off to the races against the Fire Guardian, which I actually had the least amount of trouble with out of the 4 Guardians, due to my build shitting on it the hardest. Sure, I had a lot of people go down during that fight, but I had enough smelling salts to keep the fight going, and I could just slog through it pretty alright. Once we beat the Fire Guardian, we unlock 3 more classes with the Ninja, Knight, and Wizard, and power on to the Wind Temple. This seems familiar. Spending the first part talking about progression to a certain point, then discuss the section that left me stumped for a good while. This time, it's the Wind Temple. And I'm really sorry for saying this, because everything else that I played is really good, but the path to the Wind Temple is painful to circumnavigate and remember where you're going because of a string of factors that all stack up to make it miserable, in my opinion. First factor, low visibility. While most of Idrica has had visibility impacts, the dense fog on the south, the blizzard to the west, and the sandstorm to the east are just a few, this cave has limited visibility when navigating the area. That, combined with the already low light, makes navigation hard, but when combined with the second factor, holes in the wall, it gets worse. If the Wind Temple's gimmick was just the holes in the wall, I'd honestly say it would be a perfectly fine path to the temple. But the fact that these holes are already hard to see makes it tougher to navigate. The holes themselves are genius, and it makes me wonder how the hell you did this. Both Idrica and Creature Hunter have done things that make me question how far the PS4 engine can be pushed, and that some really, really good stuff can and has been made with it. It's just unfortunate that the holes are stuck in my least favourite area of the game thus far. Third factor, the boulders. The boulder puzzles return from the Fire Temple. And unlike the Fire Temple, this time the puzzles are navigating around the boulders instead of pushing them to buttons to shut things off. Thankfully, in every single section with boulder puzzles in this cave, there's a switch to reset them in case you fuck it up somewhere, so that's good. Fourth factor, the length. This is easily the longest and most confusing part of the game that I played, and boy,
By the time I was finished with this section, I knew the route from the entrance to the temple back and front, having to redo all the boulder puzzles every time I had to run out to fetch more healing supplies. But once you slog through the caves with some of the toughest enemies that I've faced, the Wind Temple is super fun. It has some of the most unique puzzles, including moving pots onto switches, Pokemon-esque tile puzzles, multiple choice questions, and moving statues. The Wind Guardian was super easy, the only one I didn't have anyone go down against. But due to me playing it super conservatively, it was the longest of the lot for me to take them down, unlocking the Engineer, Samurai, and Summoner classes for me to use.
The game's story is still kept pretty simple. Go get the magic MacGuffins and slow the fall of Idrica. The land that isn't floating, that still has a name, I just forget it, still has people living there, and once the second orb is obtained, Nandrid rockets up to Idrica and joins the adventure. As the story continues, the Shadow Cabal tails our heroes for the Wind Crystal, and when all four are obtained, shit hits the fan. 2 families are killed and baby siblings abducted, a village is on fire, and no one gives a shit. You're then sent to explore the new land and the new areas that open up with the extra land to bridge some gaps, which is really cool. Outside of that, all 4 characters have unique portraits for every single class, including not having a class at all, which makes my head spin. You'd need, like, conditional branches for every single potential class with every single potential combination for every single cutscene, or at least cutscenes where those classes are available. In a complete 180 from Creature Hunter, these characters are decently chatty, and frequently have conversations with each other. This cutscene in particular after the village burning was heartwarming, as 2 characters grapple with their families being killed and their siblings kidnapped. Idra and Nandrid don't slack either. Idra's reputation as someone who takes the easiest road possible helps him seem an outsider to the village, with his only real friends being his companions and Eldred, his mentoree thing? I don't know. And Nandrid is desperate to save her home with Idrica's descent, making some very interesting calls in the party. These classes are awesome. Fighter, Mage, Cleric, Lancer, Archer, Monk, Ninja, Knight, Wizard, Engineer, Samurai, and Summoner. And I've only seen a few of them, but here's what some of them can do. The Fighter is your archetypical warrior. Most of the attacks use both TP and MP to attack, and even gets a passive allowing the character to equip swords no matter what class they're on. I tend to give this class to Idra whenever I'm not having him learn another class that's needed for progression. The Mage is deceptively good at self-sustain. With fire, ice, and thunder damage types, and life drain, the Mage can stay in the fight and do damage longer than you'd expect. Paired up with MP cost reduction, it can churn out huge damage thanks to MP regeneration. And I tended to give this class to Mathis. The Cleric is your archetypical tank mixed with a splash of healing. Having healing magic on hand to cure status conditions, restore HP, and provide regeneration, alongside drawing aggro and boosting HP with other skills. I tended to give this class to Estelle more than anyone else. And the Monk is a blend of all 3, having crazy damage potential from the Fighter, self-sustain from the Mage, and healing abilities from the Cleric. Along with a splash of cleansing defense drops to sprinkle in more support for the team, this was a pretty solid lock on Nandroid pretty much all the time. These 4 classes make up the core of the team I built, and makes a surprisingly effective dynamic. Physical DPS, magic, tank, and support to help with the fights. But once we start hitting level 10 on classes, I'll switch around, probably running a Ninja, Summoner, Engineer, Knight class setup, and that's the beauty of this game's class system. It allows for any combination of class roles. Hell, I'm considering a challenge run when you beat the game using Cleric only as much as possible and calling my team the Amen. Or a team of ninjas called Ninjago. There's so many options here, and I'm so excited to see what I can do and push this game to its limits. Now that we've had a second game reviewed with a finer comb, I'm going to begin a ranking chart, so that I can rank the games I review closely with my own opinions. Please note that any opinions I state here are in fact just opinions, and games that may be considered good in your eyes might be average in mine, and vice versa.
Now then, naturally, with only one game played before this one, Creature Hunter G Plus is the baseline game to surmount. And do I think Idrica Descending surmounts it? Let's evaluate based on the 5 aspects of gameplay I consider the most important. Story, character, combat, exploration, and enjoyability. Where I will rank each of these aspects on a scale of 1 to 5, and the final results will be shown here. Idrica Descending's story is basic, but not without its plot twists. Its emotional pulls were strong, especially for Nandred and Idra, but the villain's appearance felt a little too sudden, with not a lot of build to it. In contrast, Creature Hunter G Plus's story kinda suffered from the fact that it only really had one permanent fixture to tell said story, and the Palico was left alone to tell a lot of the story on its back. Meaning the story is mostly kept to bare essentials. I'll give Idrica Descending story a 4 out of 5, and Creature Hunters a 3 out of 5. Idrica takes characters easily, but let's explain why. Idrica Descending has 4 permanent party members who have characters that bounce between each other. This makes the adventure feel a lot more interpersonal as you watch these 4 grow and develop through the adventure. Creature Hunter has 2 permanent and an ensemble of non-permanent characters, and even then, only the Palico even speaks on hunts, which disconnects you from the characters and makes the cast feel somewhat absent personality-wise. Idrica gets a 4 out of 5, and Creature Hunter gets a 2 out of 5. Palico saves it from being any lower. The combat in each game feels very similar to each other, due to being made by the same dev, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Both games have skills that require TP, MP, and in some cases TP and MP. Both have status conditions that immobilize but are very easily removed with the slightest touch of damage. Both use combat very effectively and make more important boss fights feel like an event. Both have random encounters, but static encounters as well, that are for rewards mostly. I'll give both games a 4 out of 5 for combat. This one is rigged so hard. Creature Hunter's enormous areas trump Idrica easily. Idrica Descending has all the iconic RPG locations, forest, snow, sand, caves, and temples at the end of most of them. They're just incredibly small, mostly, and easy to explore, mostly, top to bottom in a few minutes easily. But Creature Hunter takes the same themes and builds off them. Desert oasis, oriental rainforests, frozen lakes, sandy beaches, volcano caves, and makes most of them enormous with multiple areas to poke around and explore. Idrica gets a 3 out of 5 for exploration, while Creature Hunter gets a 4 out of 5. Both games are really great fun, with one area holding the game back from full marks. For Idrica, it's the caves before the Wind Temple. For Creature Hunter, it's the volcano region, but present amazing ideas both in and out of combat that offset the lows with star-studded highs. Both games get a 4 out of 5, which gives Creature Hunter a final score of 17 out of 25, and Idrica Descending a 19 out of 25. Which makes Idrica Descending the best of the games I've reviewed thus far. Big shout out to the game dev for this effort, even though they were both his games, so either way I'd be giving a shout out to the same dev. While all these videos are getting made, I'm investigating the internet for other RPG Maker games to look at playing for the inevitable Part 3 of the RPG Maker experience. So if there's any games on the RPG Maker player for PlayStation 4 that you want to see play, drop it in comments and I'll look at it in a later date. Next video will be on Demon King Defiance, so stay tuned for that one. I'm Micro Mancha, and have a good rest of your day, night, or whatever time it is where you are, and we'll see you later.